It's a very hot topic that we're going to discuss today. We've been, I've been in South Africa for almost 2 years now. And in the last 2 years, most of the conferences, meetings, discussions, and businesses were thinking, what would 2020 and beyond bring? And nobody thought that this whole pandemic is going to come and it's going to expedite things very quickly. The way that we thought that the future is going to be, and then the timeline that we had in mind, it just changed things upside down. And recently the future became today. Most businesses are operating from home. Those who were not ready and were at different stages of readiness, they've done a great job to give support to their people and to continue operating. But then there's so much more into this. And this is where sometimes businesses, they underestimate the level of work that needs to be done to be ready for the future. So I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and I'm gonna take you on a small journey with me to tell you a little bit about how me and a few other HR or visionaries actually foresee this whole new way of working. This is where the question that I would like you all to think about when we get started on this journey is, why do we actually work? And it's obvious, because it's for the money, right? We need to earn a living, we need to make some money, we need to take care of our families, etc. But then the natural answer to that should be because we are passionate, because we love it, because we want to do things differently, we have a purpose in life, etc. And this is where this whole new way of working that we were used to is actually, it doesn't fit with this whole vision of why do we work, right? And a lot of people, especially the young ones, they just want to go to work to finish it so they can start their life after work. And this is where businesses think that, no, that's not it. There must be a better way of doing things. So with this in mind, think about all of the industrial revolutions that we went through. Some of us are still stuck in the first and second and third industrial revolution, right? But today we talk about the fourth industrial revolution. Actually, the fifth one is on its way. And when we talk about the Internet of Things, and then the sixth one is going to come very quickly, given the current situation that we are in. And this is where we need to get ready, both mentally and from a work perspective, because the future of work is really amazing. Because a lot of people scare us and they say, okay, the robots are coming, they're going to take over our jobs, life is going to be different, everybody's going to go on unemployment, etc. But if we take a step back and we think, we put our thinking cap on, and then we think, okay, if me as a human, I take charge of the situation, then how will the future of work look like? How will the future of work look like? It will look like more equality and inclusion for everybody, because then I am judged by my level of skills. My talents could be accessed from anywhere around the world. Nobody cares who I am, where I live, how I look like, etc. What is important is what contribution I can give, what's the level of specialization and expertise that I have. And this brings me to this whole new way of working, where we start thinking about intelligent technology. How me as a human, I can take this intelligent technology and make it work for me, and let it save me all of this wasted potential that I used to have, and all of this wasted time that I needed to put in on manual stuff. And how can I make it work for me? And how can I how it can help me to innovate and to become more creative. Now, with this in mind, businesses have been investing in AI for a while. And it's only going to get even more moving forward, because everybody now is realizing that it's actually important and essential. And given the current situation and the way that we're going to be living after this pandemic, it's becoming very important. And businesses have increased their investments by 60%. And mind you, these are older numbers. So these are 2017 numbers. So I would expect them to even double now. Whereas, and this is where the human element comes in, whereas businesses are only thinking about investing 3% in their people. And this is where the skills shortage come into play. So if I'm investing this much in AI and so little in my people, how am I going to help them to get equipped in this future of work? And I always mention this in my talks. This is where me as a person, I need to take charge of my own upskilling and learning. And with the new way that things are happening, I can actually, because I'm going to have access to a lot of information that is available for free online. Now imagine in this whole new way of working, imagine that you being able to work virtually, how much more time you will have on your hands and how much more flexibility you will have as a talent. How much you'll be able to decide on the projects that you want to work on and you choose to work on and the value that you want to bring. Now, this is where a few people who have been at home recently, overwhelmed with the whole family being at home, might be thinking that it's not that easy, right? When everybody is at home, it's not that easy. But remember, this is not remote work, and this is not the future of work. This is a current situation that we found ourselves in, and we need to adapt. It's just that everybody is at home at the same time. But ideally, with the future of work, we are going to see the open talent models going mainstream. What do I mean by open talent model? The open talent model is basically access to talent becomes more democratized, which means talent that is based anywhere around the world can work on projects that are based anywhere around the world. And as a business, I don't need anymore to restrict myself to the people who are within my geographical reach. I don't know if some of you have read, but Facebook and a lot of other technology companies today have decided to go remote. They've put themselves a target that in a couple of years' time, they're going to be 100% remote. But as of today, they have decided they're going to be 50% remote. And I see this as a great opportunity for talent anywhere around the world, but specifically in this part of the world and in South Africa. We have great amount of skills here. Today, if Facebook goes remote, they will be able to work remotely with a company like Facebook. They don't need to travel. They don't need visa. They don't need to work anywhere around the world. Physically, they can do it virtually. They could be that alternative workforce that today is going to become the workforce. So previously, we called the alternative workforce the likes of the freelancers or the independent contractors, that we bring them in and out as and when we need them. Today, this alternative workforce with going virtual and this whole remote working is going to become the workforce, which means the open talent model is going to be work as we know it moving forward. From a business perspective, this is great news, right? Because they can create a network talent ecosystem. It's a big word, but it's very meaningful. And what do I mean by that? This means that as a business, I can create a network of internal full-timers, freelancers that I can have in my ecosystem, and independent contractors. And I can basically start thinking about each project, which ones I'm going to pull in order for them to work on my project. And this is my talent ecosystem. And now this is all new, right? Because it challenges about our beliefs about work and how work is done. And this becomes a major pivot in the way that we work. Because as a business today, I used to think about the people that are within our geographical location and how I'm going to attract them to work with me. But very soon, as a business, I'm going to start competing to attract talent from anywhere around the world. And then I'll be able to reach out to this global pool of talent and to choose the best specialized ones. And this is where a lot of talk today that success is becoming very much connected to specialization. The more specialized you are, and the more you go in depth in your area of expertise, the better you will do in the future, which is 2020 and beyond. Because this is what businesses are going to start looking for, and businesses that are based anywhere around the world. And this is a term that I really like because it's very descriptive. Jobs moving forward, they're going to become location agnostic. So it doesn't matter where you are, right? If you are an expert, let's say, for example, if you're an expert in agility, or you are an expert in technology, etc., and in specific types, it doesn't matter where you are, you will be able to work with businesses internationally, and businesses will be able to find you because you need to position yourself as an expert in your field, regardless of the location. Now, this is where I said at the beginning, the transition is not that easy. It's not that easy because there's a shift in the mindset that needs to happen here, right? And it's a shift in the mindset of both the talent, and it's a shift in the mindset of the businesses, because it's a completely new way of working, but it actually shifts our fundamental understanding of work itself and how work is done. We always thought that work is done in an office. Today, it doesn't matter because it's not work from home, it's actually work from anywhere. And another aspect of the shift in mindset is that businesses today and moving forward, they're not going to be able to own that talent anymore. So basically, this whole contractual agreements of non-compete, you work with me, you can't work with anybody else, all of this is going to change, because even them as a business themselves, they're going to be wanting to build a community of talent that they can tap into as and when they need it. So with this in mind, what are those businesses looking for? And how are they going to leverage on all of this moving forward? Because with the current situation, everybody is looking for fairly priced quality. And what I mean by that is fairly priced quality of talent that they can bring into the organization. They need as well flexibility, right? Because hiring somebody full-time is very costly. And I want the flexibility to bring them in whenever I need them. And I want to do that very quickly. I need speed, and I need to sustain my business. And this is very important. And this is where adaptability comes into play. So if I'm an adaptable business, this means that I am differentiating myself from everybody else. I'll be able to adapt to this new way of working, bring in specialized talent as and when I need them. And then it will make me successful. It's more of an entrepreneurial mindset, right? And this is where we move today from a role to the flexibility of the skill set. So which means not far away, we used to apply for jobs in organizations against a certain role because they are advertising that they need a media specialist. Then I go in and I apply for this role because I've worked in media, right? Whereas moving forward, businesses are going to start advertising for projects. So a particular communication strategy that they want to put out on the media, and I need to make sure that I put out my skills out there, that I have done communication strategies specifically to help on this project. So this is the difference that's going to come very soon, is that instead of having role-based jobs, it's going to be more skills-based, and businesses will be able to get to that, to the bottom of that. There's a vested interest here, because being able to reach out to talent on demand brings in more an innovative view onto things into the business, because you'll be able to bring in fresh thoughts and ideas that are coming with those people, instead of having your own core team the whole time working on everything with that same mindset. I'll be able as a business to be flexible, fast, agile, and then to focus on value, because if I can deliver on time on the business strategy and at a very good cost, because this talent comes in at a great cost, then I'll be a winner, right? So this whole new open talent model enables the businesses to innovate, and they'll be able to bring in talent at the moment in time when they have a problem to solve, a specific particular problem or a project. And they'll be able to access this critical skills through open talent platforms that are there, like Upwork, for example, like freelancer.com, like our startup One Circle that is specifically for consultants, whereby they'll be able to reach out to this talent as and when they need it. Now, what does this mean for professionals or even for young graduates, right? What does that mean? It means that today, I need to be more flexible. It's also a change in mindset for the talent themselves, that I need to start thinking differently than how my parents thought. My parents thought that taking a bank job for 10 years or 15 years is actually the way that we should work. Whereas today, talent is thinking more about flexibility. How can I be flexible? How can I still have a life while I'm working and work on exciting projects and learn and grow and take ownership of my own career development? And there is a secret in all of this, that the secret is, if I am to succeed in this new open talent model, I need to ensure that I build a certain level of trust in me and in my own profile. And trust moving forward is going to be a very powerful currency. So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this. So what do I mean by that? By that, I mean that for me as a talent to be discovered and to be able to work with companies that are based anywhere around the world, I need to be accessible. So I need a social media presence that portrays my skills and my projects that I'm working on, or my flexibility, my area of expertise. I need to start putting some thought leadership into in my specialized area and core area of expertise. And this is the level of trust that I need to start building in my own capabilities. For businesses to take a trust leap in bringing me on a project as a freelancer or as a contractor, it's important for me to take ownership of my own reputation online. And this is a whole new concept in how platforms today are functioning. So when we talk about open talent models, we talk about open talent platforms. Like I mentioned Upwork, Freelancer, I mentioned OneCircle. This is where you start trusting the platform and the idea, and eventually you start trusting the user. So a typical example recently was Airbnb, for example, right? Now Airbnb is in trouble, but before that, it's exactly an example of having a trust stack. We on Airbnb, we choose a particular host based on the feedback that we've got from other users on the platform, because that host took ownership of their own reputation online and has been rated highly. And very soon, with platforms, for example, like OneCircle or like Upwork or like freelancer.com, when you do work on those platforms, you're going to get a rating and you're going to get recommendations. And this is the only way that other businesses are going to find you and they're going to reach you in order to work on projects. So this is where we see the new trend of talent sharing coming into play. And talent sharing becomes more around efficiency and getting things done, and not about hiring somebody in a role for a long period of time. It's about finding the right specialized talent, get them to work on a project for that project to deliver results in the best way possible. So the future, if we talk about it, the future is moving from a culture of me to a culture of we. And this is where businesses start thinking about the sharing of the talent this is where businesses start talking about the sharing of the talent instead of the hiring of the talent in one role. It's sharing that talent on projects. It's funny how this the change in the way of working is going to get expedited after this pandemic, and then personally I do see this as an opportunity. It's an opportunity because today we're having this webinar instead of having it in person, and this is how things are going to become different. It's the time to be different, basically. It's when the first and the second and third industrial revolution took play, we did have technology, but today's technology is into robots and robotics. They can actually talk, they can listen, they can move. So it's completely different. And it's scalable, right? There's abundance, there's a lot of it. Our access to technology today is at a magnitude that we never thought was possible. So if we think about how we can use this technology for our own benefits as humans, to give us more freedom, more time to do what we do best, which is being problem solvers, use our intelligence, think about things differently. I love the saying by Voltaire that says, work saves a man from three great evils: boredom, vice, and need. And I honestly don't think that technology is going to take over the world and we're going to be really bored. It's going to get us to use our brain a little bit more than what we are using right now. These are some scary numbers, right? So some of the numbers that are out there is that 800 million jobs could be lost due to automation by 2030. And that was before the pandemic. But then what we don't see here is that there's much more millions of jobs that are going to be created that do not exist today. And these are the types of jobs that we need to start thinking about. Some examples, and I'm sure a lot of you know that, is a YouTuber. YouTuber was not a job 20 to 30 years ago. Today, it's actually a job. An influencer. Influencer was like nothing. It meant nothing previously. Today, influencer is actually somebody who makes money out of influencing other people's decisions. And one of the examples that I always give on this particular subject is actually the ATM machine. When technology hit the banks years ago, and banks came out with the ATM machine, a lot of tellers have lost their jobs because basically they didn't need to do that manual work anymore. But banks realized that by having an ATM machine and saving on hiring all of those tellers, it became much cheaper to actually open new branches. So instead of a bank opening 5 branches a year, they started opening 20, 30, and 40 branches a year, which means much more jobs got created because of the introduction of the ATM machine. It's just that it's a different type of job. It's the type of job of the banking relationship manager that spends time with you to advise you on which loans to take, etc., etc. So it's a different type. Maybe a couple of thousands or hundreds of thousands of teller jobs got lost along the way, but millions of other jobs were created. One of the things that we know as well is that, and now it's going to get expedited, the driverless cars, they're going to be making up 75% of the traffic. And yes, you will have less drivers that are going to find the jobs, but this means we will need more technology people in order to operate those driverless cars. So the shift is not an easy one, right? It's going to be, we're going to have a lot of people who are going to be out of work, but a whole new world is going to open up. And this whole new world needs to be intentional. What I mean by that is we need to think about how are we going to transition into that? So moving forward, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to learn? How am I going to attend to work? Okay. And in one circle, we say we only have one rule. And it's always to give your best and to remember that, you know, to have fun along the way, because it's really important in our journey and addressing work moving forward is to think about it as a complement to your life, and to work really hard on addressing it in this manner, because this is going to be a fearless adventure. New jobs are going to come out, a lot more specialization. You will be able to work with businesses that are available anywhere around the world. In that sense, you will be able to work with businesses that are based in the US, in the UK, in Australia, while you are here. And how to do that? Through platforms that are available everywhere, by taking ownership of your own reputation online, by building a certain level of trust in your contribution and in your level of skills, by ensuring that you get the right recommendations that are available online from the right people. So this is a whole new way of working, and I hope that we are ready for it. As I said, the shift needs to be intentional from both talent and business side, and yes, and I hope you are ready for this. Thank you very much, and I think we can get some questions now, right?
Thanks, Emma, for the presentation. I said people can write their questions on the chat, and a few of them have already written there. But before we go on to the questions, I would like Refiloe to come in here and also give her perspective, and then we can then go back to the questions from people. After Refiloe's presentation, we will have Zazini Molo from the speaker's firm, who will be facilitating that discussion with the questions. Over to you, Refiloe, at the stage. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.
Thanks, Theodora. Thanks, Emma, for a great presentation. I couldn't have agreed with you more on some of those elements that you spoke about. So I just wanted to highlight some of a few things that actually stood out for me on your presentation in terms of, from the line of work that I do and what I have seen in terms of from the recent years and where we are actually headed from a new ways of work perspective. So the element around, work moving towards being more humanistic has become very, very important lately. And I think it's a result of the increase in mental health awareness that has actually come through. And you'll see that, in a lot of the organization now, and especially with this whole COVID-19 situation and lockdown situation, there's been a lot of emphasis on wellness and on employee well-being more than ever. So the increase on that is quite a significant thing as well, to say that as much as we are headed to new ways of working, how are we actually empowering employees in terms of dealing and managing with the whole changes that are coming across? And that's quite critical. I think as human resources practitioners, we need to be very intentional around how we get around doing that. So, and as much as companies are also getting themselves ready, I think, one of the things that you spoke about is how do you also get yourself ready? So not necessarily just from a learning and development perspective, but also getting yourself mentally ready to move and shift from the narrative of fear of the new ways of working, fear of, with these changes, it means that there will be job losses, but more around how do you shift that into a narrative of there's going to be new opportunities. And I like how you highlighted that in terms of let's move away from looking at it as, in a negative lens, but more around opportunities. How do I get myself ready from a, as a young professional for this new ways of working and this new world that we're seeing evolve around us? And that's quite critical, shifting the narrative around that is very important. The other thing that I'm quite passionate about, being, a talent practitioner as well, is, the issue around open talent models and what you spoke about in terms of your profile and building your profile. So I'm a very big advocate of using social media to build your profile in a positive light. So by that, what I mean is, we need to be very conscious of how we actually appear on social media. So I always actually talk to young people around that in terms of how you build your social media profile says a lot about you. That's what talent practitioners are looking for. That's what they're looking at when they're hiring you. To a lot of people's surprises, there's a lot of recruiters out there, talent acquisition specialists, that visit your Facebook profiles regularly. So you apply for a job, you submit your CV, and you're thinking, oh, well, my CV speaks for itself. You'd be surprised at how much of an effort they actually make to go and look at your behavior from a social media perspective. One of the most powerful tools that I've actually been advocating over the last couple of years is LinkedIn. The power of LinkedIn is amazing, and a lot of us actually don't, and especially young people, young people don't actually use LinkedIn to their advantage. LinkedIn can actually help you in terms of building your profile from a career perspective. You'll be accessible. So the talent models that Emma spoke about, where you could be having a company in Israel, a company in the US looking for talent. That's where they're going to find you. They're going to find you on LinkedIn. That's what companies are using globally to look for talent, to look for the different skills that are required as well. So investing in your social media profile, investing in platforms such as LinkedIn, and participating in some of the conversations that are happening online as well, because that's how you get noticed. People will know that there is actually somebody who is an expert in the skill or that skill. So that's quite important as well. So those are some of the things that I thought, in terms of how do you get yourself ready for the new ways of working. Mental wellness, that's number one. Look after your mental wellness. Build your skills. There's a lot of online courses that are out there. So, and they're not that expensive. So, using this opportunity right now to actually, when you think that you've got time, use that time quite efficiently and upskill yourself and look around and research as to what are some of these jobs that Emma spoke about that will actually come forth. And what is it that you can do for yourself around that? So it's your profile, your skills set, as well as your mental well-being. If you've got those things sorted, I think you will be a powerful brand and you'll be able to fit in with the new ways of working quite easily, and you'll be quite adaptable. So, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. And one of the things as well, you rightly mentioned LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn in terms of building up our profile. One of the things that sometimes we forget about is LinkedIn as well gives you access to a lot of thought leadership that we never thought was possible before, unless if we get a book and then we buy it and we actually pay for it, and we are limited to how many pages there are there. Whereas today, we can find each in our own area of expertise, the thought leaders, we follow them, and we listen closely to the new trends and then how businesses are dealing with certain situations, etc. And this is part of our learning, because with all of this open knowledge that is out there, it gives us accessibility to how the whole world is working. And this is where we move beyond theoretical into practical without actually practicing it. So we learn from other people's practices and we apply our theory and our knowledge to make sense out of that without even having had the experience to do it. One of the typical examples today is actually remote work. So while a lot of businesses in South Africa locally are struggling with the transition, a lot of businesses that are based in different parts of the world have shared online their experience with remote work and moving into remote work, to the extent that they have shared playbooks on how they have done it. So today, it's the accessibility to this information is amazing. It's all out there. All what we need to do is strip out the noise and then find the right thought leaders that actually make sense to us in our area of expertise, and follow them, and then enjoy the learning.
Thanks for that, Emma. I'm now allowing Zazi to take over and lead with the question and answers. Sure. Zazi, over to you.
Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you so much for such thoughtful and interesting thoughts that you've shared with the team and with the group. I'm quite pleased and honored to be part of this discussion. My name is Zaz Molo, and I'm client relations lead from the speakers firm. I took quite a few things from both your discussions, ladies, and which for me, I think I will go to the questions later on also, and try and share what the questions are from the group. But Emma, from your side, you spoke quite a lot about flexibility, agility, and you spoke about dependability. But I want us to hone or to focus mainly on the trust. When you said that trust is a powerful currency at this point in time, especially for people who are looking for employment in different parts of the world, or whatever the case might be. I think my point at that is that I see us only looking at it only on one side of the coin, as if me as the employee or as somebody that is looking for employment, I need to be trustworthy. And where do we put in the elements of the companies that are also supposed to be looking for me? And how do I ensure that also, or how do we ensure that they also as trustworthy as the people that are looking for employment as well?
So a great question, Zaz. I love that. So this is where platforms today come into play. So I'll just give you an example on One Circle, because and then the way of working on this platform, and just to give an idea of how those platforms are the catalyst to build that level of trust. So One Circle is a platform that connects consultants, and specifically HR consultants and HR professionals, to businesses that are based anywhere around the world to work on project basis, on demand, virtually, etc. Which means specifically, and a consultant that is based here in South Africa can motivate for a project that is in Dubai or US or UK, etc., and can work virtually on a platform like One Circle to deliver on that project. The reason why I'm talking specifically about platforms like One Circle, and there's quite a few that are in different specializations around the world, is that those platforms, they provide escrow payment services. And what I mean is that when the client engage with a consultant that is anywhere around the world, they will pay ahead of time for their fees that is held in escrow. Until the consultant delivers on the project, the client gets the project, and only then their fees are released. So this is, for example, this is our business model and a lot of those platforms. So when we talk about level of trust, the trust is me as a professional. If I work on a project with a company that is based in Australia, are they going to pay me? Because this is my first worry, right? Am I going to get paid for my time and for the value that I'm bringing? And this is where technology comes into play to build that level of trust. Okay, so they are technology is the mediator between both. So I see this as an opportunity for developing countries, because developing countries have great talent that are there, great amazing skills, but giving them exposure and opening doors of opportunities to projects that are available anywhere around the world in this new open talent model is great, right? Because this is a way to get people to work on projects, and technology comes into play to build a level of trust.
I get you.
From a professional perspective or an employee perspective, if we want to call them employee, this is where I need to give my best and put my best out there and provide the best value in order to get great feedback online that will help me boost my online profile.
I get you. Thank you so much for that. Emma, the next question is actually for you. We spoke greatly about a new world of transitioning, and then you spoke about profiling oneself. No, this is for Refiloe, sorry, not yours, Emma. Profiling yourself, the skills, and mental health. And one of the things that I found quite interesting is that, I mean, Emma said something quite interesting and quite important earlier on. She said, we have been talking about 4IR, but one thing that we were not sure and not prepared for is that the future will be today. So we find ourselves now in a place where the future was expedited by COVID-19. Now, on your part, Refiloe, as an HR practitioner, it is my understanding that where we are at right now in 2020, in terms of in organizations, this is where we find different we find different people working in the same workplace, to different generations. That will be from your baby boomers right up to the millennials, and we know that the baby boomers, as much as they're sitting probably most of them on the executive levels or whatever the case might be, the issue of work-life balance is not really their thing. Whereas you look at millennials, it is their thing. So how do we bridge that gap as far as 4IR is concerned? Any of you, Emma or Refiloe, can answer this one for me. As to how do we bridge the gap, seeing that we are here now, we are already in the future, we are already operating in 4IR, but we have these 5 generations who all work differently and who see work differently.
Yeah. So this is a very it's a great challenge for a lot of the organizations currently, because I think at the same, for the first time in history, we've got all different generations that are working in one space at the same time. And this actually, from a human resources perspective, as HR practitioners, it poses a challenge in terms of the culture, the cultural changes that we actually embark on. And I think, what's critical is that there needs to be an acknowledgement of the importance of each generation. And I think, as much as 4IR is here, and we've got new ways of working that we are preparing for, but an appreciation of what each of the generation brings into the work environment is quite critical. And this is where the starting point is. So once we identify and we acknowledge the importance of each generation, and then we talk about how do we then work around integrating the different aspects from a strength perspective. So not necessarily just looking at it as, baby boomers, shame, they don't know how to do this whole thing, right? And the guys, Gen Zs and Gen Ys, they're very good at these, at 4IR and so forth. But it's about how do we actually identify the strengths of each of the generations and try and build a culture that accommodates the different types of the skill set that they're bringing into this whole new ways of working. Because I must assure you, I can reassure you that it doesn't necessarily mean that now we are in 4IR, there's no use for baby boomers, there's no use for Gen X's.
True.
There's a lot of skills, and I think it goes to that mental health that we spoke about. If you look at those generations, resilience is actually probably higher in them than it is in the young people. So that's where the concept of then now we have, concepts around coaching, which can be bi-directional. It's not necessarily, coaching is we no longer have a coaching that speaks to a senior member just coaching the young ones, but we can have a coaching that is bi-directional, where, the senior guys, now we need them to help us with coping strategies, because they've seen the worst, they've seen recession, they've seen other things that the young ones are probably in shock with this whole COVID situation. And we can learn a lot from them from a skill set perspective, right? And then at the same time, the Gen Zs and the Gen Ys, this is an opportunity for them to also try and coach upward and help them in terms of how do you actually use Zoom, for example.
True.
This team, they struggle to use Zoom. How do we, work with this virtual environment that we've got? So it's an opportunity for both to actually teach each other, instead of actually looking at it as, we working against each other and so forth. So I think an opportunity for a lot of HR practitioners is for us to just make sure that we build a culture that integrates the different skill set and the different opportunities and different contributions that each of the generations bring into this whole concept. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that. I think what you've just summed it up so well, that as much as we may be different, as much as we may all have different experiences, and as much as we may have different skill sets, it is very imperative for all of us to be able to share our strength and be able to coordinate, or also be able to work in the same workspaces. Another question that I have, I think also from your talk, you spoke great length about branding oneself and the importance of branding oneself as and also building a brand, your personal brand on social media. Now, I think this has been quite an issue also in the past couple of days. I think we've seen some young people that have written stuff on social media a few years ago, and when they were much younger, and then those things are coming up to catch up with them. But at what point, as an HR practitioner, do you draw a line? At what point do I have my own personal space? Because the minute I open up a page or whatever on social media, which is not LinkedIn, because obviously the person that I am with other people is that person that I am on Facebook, and maybe a person that I am on Twitter. It's not the same person that I am on LinkedIn. And at what point do I have the liberty to be myself and without being judged for some of the opinions of the jokes that I am making as far as HR practitioners are concerned? At what point does it seem to be unfair when I am judged based on stuff that I probably wrote 10 years ago? At what point do we draw the line as employers as far as infringing on one's personal space?
So drawing the line perspective, what my fellow HR practitioners, what I can say in terms of where do we draw the line in terms of from a years perspective and so forth. I don't think that there's a lot of punitive approaches in terms of 10 years. I think that's more around the Twitter, Twitter street in terms of, they will never forget things that you did 10 years ago. However, if you look at employability currently now, what a lot of organizations are looking for, they're looking for individuals. So you can get a CA. We've got a long list of CAs, right? And if an organization is looking for CA can be a CA, can be another CA. But what they're looking for is a culture fit, right? And from a culture fit perspective, what that means is the values that you actually live by as an individual, do they fit in with the values of the organization? So what's good for one organization might not be necessarily good for another. I mean, I've worked in different types of industries. I've worked where I was going to work dressed in a pair of jeans and all-stars during the course of the week. Then I've also worked in another environment where I was expected to wear very dark colors, black, brown, and all those colors, and be in formal shoes every single day because that's the type of environment that I was working in. So, authenticity is very important. And that's one of the things that employers buy these days when they look at talent. They're not looking for a person who's not sure of who they are as an individual. You need to be very certain of who you are. You need to know what your values are. What is it that you do? And those are the things that are actually, your day-to-day behavior, right? So when we're looking at assessing an individual, if they are a culture fit, we're looking at the behavioral aspect of that individual. Do you, from a behavioral perspective, fit in with this culture? And hence I'm saying, we need to also understand that we're not saying that you can't fit anyway. You can fit in other organizations, and in some organizations, you're not a good culture fit. So I think it's more around, wanting to actually validate and ensure that there is a proper culture fit, because you also don't want to do a disservice to the individual. So if you hire a person who's not a good culture fit, they will also tend to be frustrated. So it's not going to be just about the organization. They will feel like, I don't want to work in an environment where I have to wear a tie and suit every day, because that's not who I am. And that will be very frustrating and for that particular individual. So it's more of a culture fit, just to ensure that your values as an individual, they are aligning with the company values. And it's not necessarily to say that it's discriminating. I think the nature of recruitment on its own is a discrimination.
It is.
If you think of it, because you choose who fits in and who doesn't fit in. Yeah.
That's if you allow me on this one. Just I would say on the timeline it's going to become irrelevant as we get advanced in technology, because you're going to start having bots that are going to research you before you interview for a job or before you take on a project. So you will have a full report from a bot that will say what's your personality profiling, what you like, what you don't like, etc. So the timeline it's going to become irrelevant in terms of 10 years of social media or whatever. The other bit is it actually works as well the other way around. So me as an individual, am I happy to join that company or to work on a project for that company? I'm also going to research them on social media, right? So if they are not the right type of fit with my own views, with my own values, with my own purpose, am I still going to work with them? And this is a decision that I need to make. So very soon it's going to be so accessible to get all of this holistic information about individuals and companies that it's going to become bi-directional from both sides. So yeah, and the other bit is, where do we draw that fine line between individual and who I am and the other and then the other me?
The social media persona.
This is exactly. I mean, you've said it perfectly when you said I need to be authentic to my own self. So as part of growing and maturing, we also start discovering what we like, what we don't like, what are our values. So it grows with us. So we, as part of our maturity, it's a self-discovery journey. But at every point, it's important to be aware that nothing is private anymore. Everything is public.
I get you.
And if I am capable of weighing what can hurt me 10 years from now, then today I need to make the decision not to put it out there.
Wow, very well put. Very, very well put. I've got quite a few comments also on the page.
Yes.
I'm gonna go through them after this one. Emma, you said something quite interesting when you started with your presentation. You said a lot of things have been rendered obsolete, and it is important then, therefore, for us to be adaptable, to be agile, and also to be flexible. I think one of the things that I needed you to also hone into, when we are agile and flexible and adaptable, at what point do we get dependable? No, and at what point do we also employ dependability? Because I think one of the things that I'm sitting here and I'm wary of is that that's good and well, that we need to be able to move on with the times. We need to be able to be flexible. We need to be able to be agile. We need to be able to change, like Refiloe has said, that maybe from one place to the next, there's cultural changes or whatever the case might be. So we need to be able to be flexible and change with the time, or maybe with the culture. At what point then do I become a dependable person because there's been so much flexibility inside of me?
Yeah. So no, I fully understand your point. So there's dependability on two fronts, right? Dependability that my family can depend on me, that I'm gonna be earning, and I can provide for my family and etc. And dependability in terms of delivering on the projects that I get. Okay, so there's two ways. Now, with all of this flexibility that we are preaching, it's moving at a very fast pace on both sides, on the talent side, but also on the businesses side. So, I mean, being HR practitioners ourselves, previously we used to look at somebody's resume and CV and ask them, why did you move so quickly from one company to the other?
Yeah.
Because this becomes a question mark, right? We used to think that if you worked for 1 year or less than 1 year from one company to the other, then you are not dependable. That that you're not going to stick around, that you are not loyal. So very soon, businesses are going to start, the same businesses, the same HR practitioners, they're going to look at the CV and they say, why did you stick around for that long? Does this mean you are not open to innovation? You haven't been exposed to creativity. You didn't work in multiple industries and multiple projects. And very soon, the recruiter who works in a bank, who only is going to hire people who worked in banks, they're going to start wanting people from different industries because they will bring in freshness of thought with them. So I fully understand you in the context of today, and it is my obligation to ensure that my flexibility does not impact my dependability for my family and for my earnings, and that I am smart enough to know that I always need to make sure that there's income that is coming. But as well, it's that whole flexibility that the businesses are going through from a change perspective, right? So So dependability is going to be around delivering on a project on time, and then adding value and bringing great quality and having great quality work. This is what's going to be dependability. And when I ensure that I treat each and every project as it's having the biggest impact on my reputation, then I will not struggle to have a stream of work that is coming my way.
Wow.
So yeah, and this is where I need to also put in my thinking hat and leverage on technology platforms that are out there that give me exposure, that show my talent and my skills and give me access to projects, and then put me in front of employers. So yeah, it's just striking that balance. It's a change journey that we're all going through as talent and as businesses. But with the current pandemic and the current situation, it's just going to happen at a very, very quick pace.
Wow, thank you so much. And thank you so much for that feedback and the answer, Emma. It is spot on. And going into the chats or into the questions, or I think I have a few comments rather than the questions. From MK, MK says it's called reverse coaching. I think it was when we were talking about different generations being in the workplace, as to how are we going to ensure that they all are able to coexist in the same spaces. So, and then and I'm not sure whether it's a he or she, so she said it's called reverse coaching. That simply means that both or all the generations would need to be able to coach each other. And I have quite a few comments also from S. Lolo. Thank you so much. One comment that he or she made says, skills-based jobs are the way to go to ensure recovery from the financial constraints imposed by the pandemic. But also in the long term, this is the future. It allows for acquisition of the best talent for a particular assignment and ensures tangible value, which is great. Because I think also for the longest of time, people were not getting jobs, and purely because of whatever reasons. It may be maybe because people didn't trust that you would be able to deliver, and maybe sometimes it could have been for whatever reasons that they may have had. But this allows for people now to look at you based on the skills that you have, and not purely because of where you come from or the background that you may have. And also, he or she says talent sharing benefits both the talent and the organization in terms of exposure to multiple projects, but presents a choice in terms of available talent to multiple organizations at the same time. And another comment that she made is now is the time to start building skills needed in the future in our different areas of expertise. We need depth and in our area of specialization, so that our professional profiles lure the right projects to enable continuous growth. Another comment there, it says, I like the shift from long years of service in one company to exposure to different industries or projects that may be depicted by moving from one organization to another in a shorter time frame. This goes back to what you had just said now, Emma, is to say that people are going to start looking at you as in terms of, are you really a flexible person? Why did you stay there for so long? You know, are we, if we ever give you a project, will you be able to move from one project to the next? It seems that I think everybody else is agreeing that we see that agility and flexibility and also adaptability being one of the key factors that are going to come forth, that and one of the values that we might need to have or to possess as far as the future is concerned.
True.
And I think from my side,
I just want to make a comment, based on what as Lolo was saying and what Emma was saying earlier on. I think one of the biggest challenges that we are going to be faced with as a country in terms of the new ways of working is our labor practices. So our labor laws and how they actually accommodate this new ways of working is going to be one of the biggest challenges that we need to start thinking about. How are we going to get around some of these, because they're very stringent in terms of flexibility. I mean, at this point in time, even fixed term contractors and the restrictions that we have around this is one of the biggest challenges that we will be faced with as a country. And I think that's probably one of the things that differentiate us from maybe our global the global context, because some of the other countries they're not faced with this. So we're moving with the times, but then we're still having the same labor laws and same labor practices that are pretty old. And how are we going to shift that? So yeah, I just wanted to just bring that to everyone's attention.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite amazing. Thank you for that. Emma, on your views, is there a question that you would have wanted us to probably ask that we didn't, and you would have wanted to maybe look into?
I would say just from an awareness perspective is that the change is coming anyway. It's and the pace is going to be much faster than what we were used to before, and this is where labor regulations, etc., they're going to have to tag along with what is happening, whether locally or internationally. The good thing is, and this is something that I always talk about, and then, you know, when we speak more about that, and I can see a lot of labor lawyers that are starting to fight this fight, is that with high unemployment in a country like South Africa, and a lot of fresh graduates that come into the market, the labor market, and they can't find the jobs.
Yeah.
If we ease all of those restrictions and we start thinking differently, and we help them to be on platforms that give them exposure to work on projects that might not be local, but that are global and anywhere around the world, then we will be tackling unemployment in a completely different way. Then we will be, instead of just focusing on creating local opportunities, we are opening doors to international opportunities and helping this younger generation to actually reach out and to work on all of that. So this is where I see the role of the government in helping enable this young generation to get exposed to the world in a regulated manner, of course, but to open those doors of opportunities to them. This is where I see the power of it on the mid and long term, because once we do that, I mean, this is like unlocking a full new potential. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, I've got 4 questions that I'm gonna for you and for you, Emma, and also Refiloe.
Yes.
And if we can just wrap those as we close. I'm gonna give you yours, Emma, and then also give Refiloe here too, and then we can wrap this conversation based on that.
Sure.
Okay. The one question for you, Emma, it says, how do countries in the Middle East balance a skill-based versus position-based approach, and commitment to jobs and being good ambassadors? And yours, Refiloe, it is, going forward, what do you think organizations can do to build commitment from employees? And another question is, organizations can provide employee value proposition where we understand the need of the talent and customers. For example, offering a culture that is conducive, learning and career opportunities, and other EVP aspects. Would you like me to repeat the questions, or are you okay with that?
So that was actually my response to the question.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was actually responding to that. So that's spot on. You saw that it was meant for me. Responding to the question around going forward, what do we think organization can do to build commitment? So that's the long answer there. Organization can,
okay.
Yeah, but I can elaborate on that.
Okay.
Talk to them a question regarding the organizations in the Middle East. So in the Middle East, short-term contracts are are widely used. So You engage with somebody on a certain project. When the project is finished, they can just leave. That's an engagement on a project. And most of the time it is skill based. So it's bringing in somebody to work on a particular project as part of a team to fill in the skill gap that is required within the team in order to deliver on the project. So it's widely used. It is not labeled as freelancer or independent contractor or whatever, but there is a very big shift, especially in places like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, even Saudi Arabia, Qatar, so in the whole Middle East region. There's a big shift towards bringing in people who have worked in different industries, worked on multiple projects, that have had engagements in several initiatives. And there is more shift towards what have you achieved? What were the deliverers on that project? How did you track the success of the project? Instead of what was your role? What was your job description? What you used to do? What were your daily and monthly tasks? So that shift has happened a while ago. And the reason for that is that businesses over there are more aware about value and cost and flexibility. And they've been on this journey to the extent that now they know that bringing in creativity and innovation and freshness of thought helps them to move much, much quicker. So there are a few initiatives that are happening in South Africa in order to get everybody into that way of thinking, and this is one of the ones that I'm personally involved in is the exponential entrepreneurship way of thinking, which is even big businesses, they need to start thinking as entrepreneurs and how am I going to leverage on the different types of skills. So yeah, and in the Middle East, this has happened already. Legally, they do have binding sponsorship and way of working. But this is more on the visa side and all of that. So they are very flexible on bringing in somebody on a project, leveraging on them, and then they can go. I can see a question around EVP. And it's a very spot on question, because very soon we're going to start talking about FVP, which is flexible value proposition instead of employee value proposition. Because if as a business, I'm going to have an ecosystem of talent that's going to be composed of full-timers, freelancers, independent contractors, etc. I need to also be attractive enough as a business to get that freelancer who has that level of skill to want to work on my project. Otherwise, they will just tell me, no, thank you very much. I have multiple projects to work on. Why would I choose you to work on your project? So the roles are going to be reversed. So very soon, companies need to start thinking about replacing EVP with an FVP. And this is a different conversation in itself, because it's a completely a new way of thinking. So yeah.
Yeah. So just to add on what Emma is saying around that, I think she mentioned it earlier on when there was a question posed around personal branding. So I think with the new ways of working, it's no longer just about you building your own personal brands, but it's quite important for companies to also build their own employer brand, because as much as you for an interview, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. So it's both ways, and it acts both ways, and that's why it's important for organizations not to take that for granted in terms of trying to make sure that they do build the value proposition that is required. Currently, it's employee value proposition, but like Emma rightly said, we have to move on to the flexible value proposition that we're offering individuals as well going forward. So it's quite important in order to build that commitment to, it's both ways. Where people work, but you also have to offer them something over and above the salaries that they get, because salaries they can get everywhere, right? So what differentiates you from an employer brand perspective from your competitors? What would make someone come and want to work for you? instead of working for your competitor. So that's it's bringing a very different dynamic now in the future, to say that it's no longer about just company relaxing and thinking that people want jobs and they will just settle for anything, but they would also want their values, the propositions that they want to also be fulfilled. So yeah.
There's quite a few also thank you notes from the chat group, and also from the Q&A, and also I think from my side. Thank you so much, ladies, for this conversation. This was quite thought-provoking, insightful, and very inspiring. And I think for me, more than anything else, I'm quite grateful to have such amazingly beautiful ladies also in the leading conversations as far as the future of work is concerned, as well as 4IR is concerned. Because half the time, whenever we speak about 4IR and the future of work and all of those things, it's usually the men that are leading these conversations. And I would know it because I'm in the speaking game, I'm in the eventing game. And 99% of the time, I always have to sit and listen to men having these conversations. And I sit and wonder, at what point do we get the ladies also leading in these conversations? And this was a great one to also be able to bring both aspects of HR and the future of work, and as well as 4IR, and put it in one basket. This was a very inspiring conversation. Thank you so much. And if possible, Emma, also, we would like to have that presentation that you shared earlier on.
Sure.
And that was quite insightful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I often say that I think now I'm not sure whether I'm warming up to the idea of 4IR, or it's just starting to make sense to me. But I think a lot of people are also getting that sense that the conversations that we are having now around 4IR are no longer the scary conversations. And you've managed to do that for us today. You managed to bring it home, and it resonates greatly. And we are able to see ourselves plugged in different aspects and different elements of what 4IR is. Because I remember the conversations around that, they were quite scary as to what's going to happen to us, how are we going to live? But but the conversation today also brought it home greatly for me, and it resonates. And I believe that is also a consensus around everybody else that has been part of this discussion. Thank you so much. From the Speakers Fam and UJ Library, we want to thank you so much, ladies. This was really great. We appreciate you.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.